Hi guys, welcome to our first online class. My name is Mrs. Payne or Allison Payne. I have probably met a lot of you guys already in art class. If there's someone on our online class who I haven't met yet, I'm so glad you're with us. So we are going to be doing forms and shapes. What we have here with us is our worksheets, which you guys received, and it's going to include all these forms and shapes that look like this. One shape is going to be the cone. It doesn't say cone on the top, but this is a cone. So maybe I'll write it. This is our cone. Our cylinder shape, cube, rectangular prism, and pyramid. These are all of our geometric shapes, and we're going to cut these out and we're going to create these little shapes. These are going to be shapes that we use in a future project, so we want to do a great job creating these shapes because we're going to be using them as a still life later. All right, I'm not going to go over all the terms. I would like you guys to read through them. And as I say things like shape and form and gradient, then you guys know what I'm talking about, okay? Okay, so we've got a pencil, scissors, tape. You can use Scotch tape, the small tape that you have at home. I have my sketchbook here. Okay, so I have all my supplies. I'm ready to cut out these shapes, okay? So I'm gonna take my scissors, and we're going to be doing step 1. So we're cutting out these shapes first. So go ahead and cut these out as clean cut as you can. See how I'm folding all of these tabs? They are going to be taped together to other parts of the paper, so I want the tabs to have folds in them. It's kind of like origami. So if you've ever done origami at home, sometimes you do a fold like this before you put it all together. So all of my folds are good to go. When you start to attach these together, I would start with the middle one right here. And it tucks in pretty good right there. Okay, so I will get a piece of tape and I will tape the edge just like that. I put it on the edge like this, meet them together. I'm trying to get the lines to match. And then fold the tape over. Okay, so that's one way to do it. Maybe I'll fold it again. Okay, the next one I'm going to tape the edge of this one and this one, and that will be good to go for my rectangle. It's going to be almost exactly the same for the cube, so I'm pretty sure you guys can do this on your own. So I'm going to skip ahead, and I'll probably show you the cylinder because that's where it gets a little bit more tough, okay? But really quick, before I tape all of those together, I'm going to show you how to do the folds for the other ones. The cone, you're going to fold over itself. And as you start to tuck it in like this, you'll start to see that it kind of fits together just like that, just a little bit seamless. So when it sits up, it's going to look like this. So you'll tape right along the edge. That one's pretty easy. So you just tape that right there. And you got a cone. The pyramid, remember it's just like the rectangle and the cube. You're just going to fold these tabs. Each tab gets folded. and fold along those lines. Get really nice, clean, crispy lines, edges, and it'll stand really nice. Okay, so when I put these together, they will look very nice and sharp. It folds together almost like a box. So once I tape that in place, it'll look like this. So that's pretty cool. And the cylinder. So I folded the tab and I cut these circles around. If you cut them out, that's okay. It's just easier, I think, to do it this way. The cylinder, I do not mind if you just leave the top off. Really, we can just tape it right on top, just one of them. But it's optional. I think that it's good to try your best to get the top on it. And this might be a good way to do it, is if you cut around it with it still attached. But I'm sure that you can still put it on top, even if you cut it out. The way that it would work is you bring this to this tab and you tape it right there. So I'm bringing the tab, meeting it to the line. It's important to try to match the lines together. If I go past the line, it might be too short for the circles to cover the top. So it's good to try to match the lines that they show you. Okay. So the bottom and the top can be taped in place. I think I'm going to take this off because I don't really need it on the bottom. I'd rather just have one to tape. I'm just going to make this easier. And it's just like a can. I just have to fold it down, and I'm just going to put a tape, just one little piece of tape on the top. I'm going to try to fit it so it matches the same shape. All right, that's pretty close. Pretty close indeed. Okay, so that'll do. Okay, so I'm just going to tape my cube really fast, and then and my pyramid, and then we're going to move on. So I have all of my shapes, and I'm going to try to organize these in a way that I think looks really cool. Okay, so I think I like the way these look. And I want you guys to really quick, as you're doing this, look at the shadow shapes. They have their own shape, don't they? All my shapes are ready to go. We are going to use X-ray vision to try and create a 3D object on a 2D surface, okay? If I were to look at my cube, for example, and I wanted to draw it, and you guys can follow along while you're looking at your cube, I like to put the cube towards me like this. And a cube has 6 sides, but I only see 3 sides. And I could just go ahead and draw what I see, but let me try it with X-ray vision. Okay, so I'm going to try and show you a X-ray version of a cube. So what I'm going to do is start with a square. I'm going to put another square right behind it, like this. Okay? And I'm going to attach these corners together, like so. And that is one way to do a 3D cube. So I'm going to erase the parts that we don't see. In the cube, we only see 3 sides. So I'm going to erase what we can't see. So based on where I'm looking at my cube, we can't see the back. So I'm going to erase these lines that we can't see. So I'm using X-ray vision to draw it to make a really accurate cube, almost like real life. And now it looks kind of 3D. Now what would make this look even more 3D is if I add a shadow. Okay, so I'm going to look at my shape of my square, my cube. I'm going to kind of draw that shape of the shadow that I see, just a little bit. I'm not going to work too hard on that. It's just for practice. And I'm going to color that in with my pencil. Oh, look at that. It looks pretty 3D. Now, I'm going to try to shade the side. Okay, and in my cube, I might make this side a little bit lighter. And I'll keep the top really light. And that really makes it look quite 3D. With cubes, it's pretty simple for shading. You don't have to think too hard. One side might be darker than the other. And sometimes you can darken some of the lines to make it really stand out. But that's good. That looks like a 3D cube. Pretty cool. All right, let's move on. Okay, the rectangle is just like the cube, but instead of trying to keep them exactly together, a rectangle is long. So I'm going to take my rectangle and kind of shape it in a different shape. And I'm going to create one square. And squares are equal on all sides, so you want to try to make it pretty similar. You can also use a ruler if you want to. And I'm going to create another square that's kind of farther away. So let's make it, I'm making it pretty far away. Okay, but you guys could actually make them closer. I made it a little bit farther away and a little bit higher. Now I'm going to try to attach these corners. And if you would like to use a ruler, this is a great time to use it. Using a ruler can really help with this, but we are just sketching, so you guys don't have to make it perfect. This is just to learn a little bit. Okay. All right. So here's my rectangle. Now, when I look at my rectangle, I kind of see a shadow here, so I'm going to try to create that shadow shape. And I'm going to fill that in. And we're going to try to make this 2D shape into 3D. I did my X-ray vision to create a 3D shape. Now I'm going to erase the lines that we don't need, that we can't see. So when I look at my rectangle, I can't see this, I can't see through it. I can only see this side. So I'm going to erase the lines that I don't see. I can only see 3 faces of the rectangle, right? That's this side, which is going to be my darkest side. And I'm not pushing very hard on my pencil to fill it in. I'm just being very light and I'm layering it over and over a little bit at a time. Okay, that's one side. I don't see that line, so I'm going to erase it. And I don't see this line. Okay, cool. So the top is the brightest part. This part is a little bit shaded, so I'm just going to do a little shading, just one layer. All right, so there's my little rectangle. So with the rectangle, we didn't have to do much of a gradient, but we do have to think about values. So I'm using different values to try to tell you it's a 3D object, and I'm looking at my shapes to try to catch those values with my eyes. I'm trying to see it and draw it. So the pyramid, you're basically going to draw a triangle. You draw a triangle on the bottom. I'm trying to think about the shape of my prism and what it looks like on the bottom. And for me, it looks kind of like this. I'm going to put a dot at the top. And then I'm going to meet these lines all the way up at the top. All the points are going to come to the top, just like this. Okay, so I'm seeing through this prism to try to create my 3D form. Now I can't see, I can only see two sides. Okay, so I erase the sides that I can't see, and I'm left with two sides. Before I start shading my values in, I'm going to create this shadow that I see. The shadow looks kind of like that. And I think that this side, when I look at it, I feel like this side's a little darker. So I'm going to make this side a little bit darker than that side. And sometimes I like to make the lines a little bit darker if I feel like my shadow's dark. Okay, let's first do a cone. The cone shape, instead of starting with a triangle on the bottom, I'm starting with a circle. Okay, so here is my circle. I'm actually going to create an ellipse slightly. An ellipse is a little bit more like, an oval and an ellipse are pretty similar. It's not quite a circle. And I'm going to do what I did with the prism. I'm going to put a dot at the top, and I'm going to try to find the edges and go up to the top. Okay, so here's my cone. I can't see that line, right? I just used my X-ray vision to make the bottom, and now I can erase it because I can't actually see it. Now the shadow is kind of like another triangle. So I'm going to fill that in pretty lightly. Now this is where we're going to have to use a gradient from dark to light. So when you do a cone, it is going to be darkest where it's close to the shadow along the edge. Okay, so this is going to be the darkest spot right along the edge. And then it gets a little bit lighter. So I'm going to be even lighter with my pencil. I'm only going to do one layer of shading for this one. And then maybe right in the middle, I'm going to be so light, barely touching the paper, just a little bit right there. And this is a gradient. This is when it goes from dark to light. Okay, maybe I'll go over it again and make it even darker on the edge. Okay, so my gradient is starting to look pretty 3D right there. Now what I can do is use my finger to blend. If I want to blend with my finger, I can. Or I can leave it the way it was. And that's how you do a gradient to make something look 3D. Gradients are usually on round objects, on round forms. When it's a rectangle or a cube or a prism, it's not always going to have the same obvious gradient. Okay? All right, let's do the cylinder. Okay, so the cylinder is like a circle, just like we started with the cone. Kind of like an ellipse or a oval shape. And I'm going to do the same one up here. If it's easier, you can start by making two lines. I would recommend probably using your ruler to try to make it really nice and straight. The other option is doing two ovals first of the same size, right on top of each other, and then meeting the two lines together. Okay? So I used my X-ray vision to tell myself there is a circle on the bottom and there's a circle on the top. And now, what can I not see? I can't see this bottom. I can only see the top. So I'm going to erase this line. Okay? So, when it's a cylinder, it's the same thing. You get really nice and dark right on the edge. And the shadow for my cylinder comes out like this. So I'm just going to shade that in. Just very light value. It doesn't need to be too dark. Shadows don't have to be so dark. Okay, so my cylinder edge is pretty dark here, and then it gets a little bit lighter because I'm creating a gradient to make it look 3D. It's a little bit lighter there, and then I'll be even lighter with my pencil. Just barely touch the paper at all. Just a little bit. Barely. And that's pretty good. And I'll stop right there. So I can use my finger to blend like this. And that looks a lot like a 3D cylinder right there. I don't think the top needs to be dark, but if I wanted to, I could shade this slightly if I wanted to make it a little bit darker. So that is all of the shapes. And the terms that we went over value, which is from light to dark, gradient, which is the blending from different values, just like on the edge here where it's dark and it goes to light, that's called a gradient. Right here, that's called a gradient. We talked about blending it with our finger to try to mix together these different values a little bit so the transition looks smoother. And we talked about form. Form has to do with the way it is. Is it rounding? Or if it's a cube, all the sides are equal. With a rectangle, some sides are longer. So I think that is the end of lesson 1. Okay, so what I want you guys to do is keep these shapes, keep them somewhere safe, because we're going to use them again for lesson 2. So hold on to them, and we will come back next time and do our next project. We're going to start focusing on color next, and that's going to be lots of fun. So good job. Give yourself a pat on the back, and we'll see you next time.